Hi and welcome back to my channel, Modern Modis. In today's video, I'm going to be making a puffer jacket inspired by this Chanel vintage puffer jacket I saw on Instagram. The lowest price I could find this coat going for was $3,600, so we are making a dupe. I went to Joann's initially for my fabric, and these are the fabrics Joann's has. These are utility fabrics and they were a bit stiff for what I was looking for, so I ended up going to a different fabric store called the Fabric Warehouse, and I was lucky enough to find this super cute red fabric. It was a remnant, only 2¼ yards on the table, so I got lucky. But I'm gonna get the rest of the materials I need for this project from Joann's. So we're going to need batting for this project. Usually I get the batting that comes in the bags, but today I'm going to be getting off the roll. I'm gonna get 2½ yards of this thick batting, and I'm also going to go and get 2½ yards of this fleece batting to add extra warmth to my jacket. This is the hoodie I'm going to be tracing today to create my pattern. I have it over my hoodie that I had on already, and it's still pretty spacious. And the hoodie can be a tiny bit baggier because we are adding batting to our pieces, which is going to take away from some of the space we have in our jacket. So this hoodie right here, a hoodie a little bit bigger, is a good option to trace. Also, I'm going to be adding that satin ribbon to the side seam, and that's going to give me a tiny bit more space in my jacket. Now, I do have a video on my channel. It's called How to Create Your Own Patterns Tracing Clothes You Already Have, and that video shows you how I trace the clothes in better detail. So I'm going to show you here and now, but I'm not going to really get into the details of how I'm going to trace this. But yeah, let's just get on tracing. I have my hoodie folded in half, and I'm just going to trace around it. For the armhole, I'm just going to take a sewing pin and I'm going to poke it here along the seam, and then I'm going to trace all the little dots created with the sewing pin. This armhole to me is not looking big enough, so I am going to extend it down, but then I'm going to have to go and add that adjustment into my sleeve as well. I'm going to draw a line here to separate the yoke because the yoke is going to be cut separate from the rest of the front. So I'm just going to measure down from the neckline and shoulder here 7 inches, and I'm going to just draw that across. I'm adding 2½ inches on the bottom because I'm going to create an elastic casing down there. Before I go cut on this line here, I'm going to use this piece to cut out my lining fabric. Only my lining fabric is going to be 2 inches shorter than this. Then cut on this piece and cut out my 2 fronts, or 4 since there's going to be 2 of these and 2 of these. Why wouldn't I trace around my back the same way, around the shoulder, the side, the neckline, and poke holes along the armhole? And then I'm going to go and mark out my yoke for the back too. Now I'm going to add my seam allowance and cut the back out, and again I'm going to cut out my lining back first, minus 2 inches at the bottom, and then I'm going to cut on the yoke, and then I'm going to cut out 2 here with the yoke and 2 of the lower back pieces. And last, I trace my sleeve with the same method. I trace around the sides of the sleeve like this and mark where I want the bottom to come, and then I poke holes along the sleeve's shoulder. I extended the armhole on the front and back piece, so I'm just going to extend this just by the inch. This is not the proper way to upsize your sleeve, but this will work. And I'm just going to go and trace around this part of the sleeve like I did with this side, and again poke holes along this seam since the front curve is a little bit different than the back curve. I'm going to make sure I add the extension on this side too, which I did already. I just need to go and add my 1/2 inch seam allowance to the entire sleeve, and I'm going to go and cut this out. Here's my upper front and here is my lower front. I already cut a piece of batting for my fronts. I made this batting shorter than the actual front since there's going to be an elastic casing down here at the bottom. And I'm going to go and cut a layer from the fleece batting. Before I go and sew my batting onto my fabric, I need to go and draw my lines in. And for the top, I'm going to go do my line vertical here, and then my horizontal lines like usual on this lower half, just as it is here in the picture. I'm going to go and clip this to the batting and the fleece batting, and I'm going to go and stitch on my lines that I've drawn, and then I'm going to serge around the entire perimeter of each piece. That's half of my jacket right there. So I'm going to show you how I added these two pockets. Let's start with the upper flap pocket. So here are the measurements for the pocket pieces. Pause if necessary to get a better look. I'm going to go and sew my batting to the wrong side of one of these pieces, and then sew the two together right sides facing along the sides and the bottom edges. I'm going to trim off the excess fabric at the corners and turn this piece right side out and top stitch about 1/4 inch from the edge. Now I'm going to go and align the center of this piece with the line I've sewn right sides facing. I'm going to lay this pocket piece on the bottom half of my front so that the center of the rectangle drawn will line up with the center of the pocket flap. And I'm going to sew the pocket flap in place and around the rectangle I drew on that pocket piece. I'm going to trim the excess fabric here and snip into the corners so that I can turn this piece to the inside like this. Then I'm going to line up the center of the other pocket piece with the center of the pocket flap and sew those together only along the pocket flap. And sew the two pocket pieces together right sides facing like so. Then I'm going to line up the front yoke with the bottom half of the front like this, right sides facing, and sew the two together on either side of the pocket opening. And now we have our pockets right there in the yoke. I can fit my phone into there, which makes it the perfect size. Now all I need to do to complete this pocket is add the corresponding snap piece there. Now it's time to do the zipper pocket, which in my opinion is a little bit more tricky. I went and I got a 7-inch zipper. I'm really trying not to make this whole video about sewing pockets, so let's breeze through the second pocket so we can get on to assembling the jacket. I went and I cut this piece here, which is 9.5 by 4 inches. My opening is only going to be a 1/2 inch wide. I went and drew it there. That's the center line, and that is 7 inches long. I'm going to go and sew this to my jacket, and that's how I'm going to create the opening where the zipper is going to go. I basically fold that piece to create a double welt pocket like this. There are a lot of tutorials online to show you how to create a double welt, so for the sake of time I won't go into details. And then I'm going to go and pin this half of my zipper, or clip this half of my zipper to the welt, and I'm going to sew that in place, and then I'm going to go and do the other side as well. I cut this piece from my lining, and I'm going to sew it to the bottom edge of that piece I used for my welt right sides facing, and then I'm going to fold it up and sew across the top and down each side. I decided to curve the bottom edge out like this to keep it out of the hem allowance. It looks messy, but after I serged the raw edge, it looked much better. Now for the back, I went and marked my lines and sewed each piece to the batting and serged the raw edges just like I did with the front pieces. Then I sewed the yoke to the bottom back piece right sides facing. I pinned all this together. None of this is sewn, it's all pinned together because I just wanted to see how the fit was before I continue. And I think my jacket is a little too big. I might have to shrink the fronts and the back and the sleeves down a little bit because I still also need to add the ribbon at the sides like the Chanel jacket has. I went and bought myself some black ribbon. I went and downsized all my pieces, and then I used these fabric transfers to print my label on for the ribbon sides. I made sure to buy transfers for dark fabric, and then I followed the directions on the packet to apply it to my ribbon. It looks like I purposely made it ombre. See how it's lighter on the center? But that was just caused by applying too much heat. So yeah, if you're gonna do this, don't apply too much heat. But I think it's cute, especially because I made the same mistake on both sides. So it looks like it's meant to be that way. I'm just going to go and create another one for the other sleeve and two for the sides and get back to assembling my jacket. I went and I trimmed down the fronts and the back since I wanted to take it in a little bit, and I went and pinned everything together with this piece down the side seam because I wanted to see how it all fit before I sewed it all together, and the pins went and left little holes in my ribbon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back my ribbon with probably the faux leather I have left over from my shearling coat. But yeah, now that I went and trimmed everything, I'm going to go again and serge my sides, and then I'm going to begin to assemble everything. We got two sleeves on, and now it's time to close the sides and put these on. And after these are in, we're gonna see if my adjustments were right or if I messed up and made this coat a little too small, which I hope I did not, because it's easy to make it smaller, it's hard to make it bigger. So let's go sew these in. I sewed the sleeve ribbon to the side ribbon first with a curved seam. Then I pinned this to one half of the sleeve inside, lining up the armpit seams. I sewed that in place. Then I went and pinned the other side of the ribbon to the other half of the sleeve inside like so, and sewed that in place as well. I love the contrast of the white and black against the red. It's so cute. And now I just need to go and figure out a lot of stuff. We have a lot to do. I'm going to start with folding up the bottom edge 1.5 inches and sewing my elastic casing by sewing 1 inch up from that folded edge. Then I'm going to measure my elastic to fit around my hips snug and feed it into my casing. And then I'm going to stitch each end of my elastic in place. I'm going to jump right into making my sleeve cuffs, sewing my ribbon, which is backed by the faux leather again, to my wristband, which is 15 inches long by 3 inches tall, and then fold that in half and sew my elastic casing, leaving a gap to pull my elastic through. I'm going to feed my elastic through that opening and then sew the opening closed and sew my sleeve cuff to my jacket, right sides facing. To add my little zipper piece in my flap, I decided that I have to go and take these in a little bit because I'm going to add extra pieces for the zipper, and I'm a little nervous and I hope that I don't regret this, but I'm going to be cutting this side in just 1/2 inch, and I'm going to be cutting this side just 1 inch off of that, and the piece that's going to go there is going to be this piece, which is 2 inches wide. And the piece for this side that's going to go here is 1.5 inches. And I already also cut this piece here, which is 6 inches wide, and this little piece, which is half of that. And this is going to fold over like this to be my flap. I'm going to sew the bottom of my lining to my outer jacket along that 1/2 inch folded up above the elastic casing. And then if we turn it over, this is how it's looking on the inside of the jacket. For the zipper side without the button placket, I went and attached interfacing to each 1.5 piece, and I sewed them right sides facing to the jacket edge and sewed the zipper to 1/2. This is the interfacing I used and I hate it. It's so hard to sew it, just so you know. I'm going to sew the ends of these pieces together right sides facing, trim off the excess fabric, and then turn them right sides out and fold under the inside like so and sew it in place. Okay, so that 1/2 of the zipper is on, and now I'm going to attach the other side of the zipper almost the same way, except that side's going to have the button placket. So I went and I folded that 6-inch wide piece in half. I sewed it along the bottom here along with the interfacing, or not interfacing, the batting, and I trimmed in the corner so that when I turn it right side out, we have a clean bottom like that. And I'm going to go and serge this edge here. I went and sewed this piece to my jacket right sides facing, and then sandwiched it all between my 2-inch strips like this. I'm going to sew my zipper to this upper strip facing the outside of my jacket. Before anything else, I'm going to make sure everything is lined up when I zip the zipper. And then I'm going to sew the bottom edge of the two 2-inch strips together right sides facing, trim off the excess fabric, and turn it right side out, and then fold under that inner raw edge and top stitch it in place. And now I'm just going to go and top stitch along this edge here. My collar is 6 inches by the length of my neckline. I went and serged one edge of my collar to my batting, which is half the length of my collar piece. And then I pinned my collar to my neckline right sides facing. I sewed that in place, and I ended up trimming down my batting to the height I wanted my collar to stand once finished. I folded the ends of my collar like this and stitched those in place, so when I turned it over, I have these lovely corners. I folded under the raw edge of my collar in the inside of my jacket and stitched in the ditch on the right side of my jacket to stitch it in place. And then I went and stitched down the center of my collar. And finally, I went and added the rest of my snaps to my jacket.